Are we
All right,
on?
we're live.
Okay. Welcome to the Dynasty One podcast. I'm your host, Carl Savchik, and tonight I am joined by somebody who is doing podcasting the old-fashioned way, and that's Jesse Patterson. How you doing tonight, Jesse?
Hey, I'm doing all right. I'm still sitting at the computer like a
Like,
podcasting veteran, I guess.
like a normal person.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll just address the elephant in the room. My, I went to start the my computer up so we could do the podcast, and there is like an update that's going to probably take 3 years to complete. So I couldn't do the podcast from my computer. What I could do was run a bunch of wires and USB cables and aux cords in my car, and I brought my Blue Yeti microphone out with me to my car. And 45 minutes after we were supposed to start the show, we are now starting the show, and I am driving while podcasting. So Jesse and I made the joke before the podcast started. This is definitely a unique situation.
I want to see you get pulled over and try to explain yourself.
I'm definitely going to get pulled over. I'm getting pulled over, and rightly so. I mean, no human being should be doing a podcast while literally driving. This is insanity. This is like looking at the sun during an eclipse without special sunglasses.
Hey, your president did it, man. That's as smart as it gets.
All right. Well, we do have, as unprofessional as it seems so far, we do actually have an agenda. There's some big news to talk about. First of all, after the departure of Sammy Watkins, the Buffalo Bills' newly signed free agent receiver Anquan Boldin has retired, leaving little at the position in terms of pass catchers. There are already rumors circulating that the Bills may or should trade LaShawn McCoy and Tyrod Taylor. Jesse, how are you treating this situation in Dynasty with the players that are currently on the Bills?
Well, I don't know if it's as much of a hit to the Buffalo wide receiver core that Bolden's got. I mean, talent-wise, absolutely. I mean, Hugh is a borderline Hall of Famer, right? But they had 3 slot receivers, so him moving out just means now they have 2 slot receivers. Right. I don't know if that's going to make things better or worse from a game planning standpoint or a personnel on the field standpoint. I mean, certainly it does take away from the talent on the field. Like I said, having Anquan Boldin out of there, replacing him with half of Jordan Matthews' sternum and the rookie Zay Jones, it's going to hurt things. But as far as from a dynasty or a fantasy standpoint, I'd like to see them move Tyrod. They're clearly not going to be playing to his strengths this season by any means. And based on what we've seen so far in the preseason, he's playing, honestly kind of like junk. But I think he's just trying to get used to his new weapons. With them in full tank mode, I can certainly see them entertaining the offer to move a veteran like McCoy or a quarterback that they have no ties to after this season like Tyrod Taylor. And then with the league being so desperate for starting caliber quarterbacks around, I could see there actually being a market for Tyrod Taylor if a team like, say, Denver or Jacksonville came calling.
Yeah, if Tyrod ended up in Jacksonville, that would be awesome. Other than that, I think that just this whole situation hurts everyone's value. It hurts Shady's value because there's probably not a better team for him to be on situation-wise, just because the Buffalo Bills were number 1 in rushing attempts per team last year. I think they were number 1 in rushing yards. The one situation I would love to see Shady go to is back to the Eagles. That could make a ton of sense, and undoubtedly one of the best offensive lines in the league. That could help his value. Overall, we're talking best case scenario, so I'm still slightly down on Shady and slightly down on Tyrod, just because the Bills are like outwardly tanking and like saying that we're okay with you knowing it. And I'm not just saying the Anquan Boldin thing. Obviously, that's not the only thing, but with trading Sammy Watkins and trading Ronald Darby, I think that we know that the writing's on the wall now. The only person that I do see this helping is Charles Clay, and with Anquan Boldin leaving specifically, and obviously with Watkins leaving too, I think Charles Clay has some sneaky late round tight end potential.
Well, and I think that almost ties into another point we have on our agenda later on, and we can maybe even transition that a little bit right now. I know I'm skipping ahead a couple of points on your agenda, but the Jets are in the same division, and they're tanking too. So what happens when those two teams play each other?
Yeah, somebody said that the Patriots have 4 bye weeks uh, this year, or 5 bye weeks, obviously with having one real bye week. I don't know that they don't have seven. If we're talking about the fact that the Dolphins are sending Jay Cutler, the former analyst, out at quarterback, I don't have any faith in him. But yeah, I mean, have you can you think of a division in recent memory where the Vegas odds, however you want to define that, like should go towards one team?
Well, I think. I think New England's already clinched the division, and we haven't even played a down of football yet. So,
Yeah.
I mean, something would have to go catastrophically wrong for New England to not win that division now. So, I
Yeah.
mean, as a as a non-New England area sports fan, um, I obviously don't wish any ill on anybody, but to see the Patriots struggle would be nice, and maybe having them have a cakewalk through the regular season and then finally face some competition in the playoffs, that might be a detriment to them.
All right. This is kind of a weird thing. I don't even know if this is worth talking about. It might be. It seems as though sickle cell traits could still be hampering John Brown, although he it sounds like he went back to practice today, but that's definitely something that has been bothering him. And Ty Montgomery reportedly has it as well. The sickle cell anemia. How do you value each of these players individually? I know I'm kind of clumping two players together with really not much else in common. And are we adding sickle cell to like a quote unquote football injury? I know like they didn't sustain it playing football, but as far as an injury in it, and I also know it's not an injury, so I really use that term loosely. But are we clumping that in as something we should be worried about with players going forward?
I think you have to. I mean, I would almost factor it in the same way you factor in suspension risk. A player like Martavis Bryant or something like that. At any given time, he could be missing games due to, well, for him it's being stupid. But someone like John Brown or Ty Montgomery, or even there are other NFLers that have it. Geno Atkins has missed time with it. What's his name on the Steelers? Ryan Clark. He had the sickle cell trait and got really sick in a game in Denver one time. So I mean, it's
Yeah,
something.
and he didn't travel to Denver after that one game.
No, he never went back to Mile High. Atkins has, and there's someone. Oh, Tevin Coleman had it, and he played in Denver last year as well. But it's something that I mean, I think you have to factor in as just another risk category with someone like a John Brown or a Ty Montgomery. It's something that you have to consider, maybe as a tiebreaker when you're choosing between two players of similar skill.
And then how are you valuing John Brown right now? Related to that, not related to that, just in general. Um, Bruce Arians has been very um, insensitive. I think if
Yeah, no, that's
I guess
actually
we
that's a
don't.
good way to put it. Actually, insensitive is a great way to word that because I mean, obviously, this guy what the sickle cell does. I mean, I've done very basic research on it myself. I'm definitely no doctor, but what the sickle cell trait does is that it slows down healing time. It leads to more soft tissue injuries, and with John Brown already having his hamstring issues, and then the coach, kind of haggling him or hassling him or trying to, I guess, motivate him by saying Jaron Brown is now the number 2 receiver there. I think maybe he's trying to rush him back, but I don't think that's going to do anybody any good.
Yeah, and he's always been a bit of a player's coach. It really surprises me that he's taking this route with just the way that he's talking about John Brown publicly. It really, from a dynasty standpoint, it makes me not want to touch John Brown. I mean, whether or not he can help it, obviously, we're not here picking players that we want to succeed. We're picking players that we think will succeed. And I got to be honest, I'm dropping John Brown down my wide receiver ranks as of late.
Yeah, it's hard not to at this point. I mean, I've been a John Brown advocate all offseason. My friend Andy's been needling me into different various bets involving John Brown. He's always picking on me on Twitter for it. But I
Yeah.
started to doubt him myself.
So what about Ty Montgomery with this same situation happening? Are you bumping him down a little bit, or since he's not getting the negative press from the coach, are you still okay with him?
I think again you have to factor this in as a detriment if you're considering drafting him. certainly it's something that could flare up and hurt him the same way it's currently hurting John Brown. Just because John Brown's the one that's currently, publicly suffering through it doesn't mean that that Tymont isn't as well. Montgomery plays a more physical position too, so you got to consider maybe he's more prone to getting injured in a game situation and then having that long heal time. So I'd probably be dropping him as well. It's just like I said, it's unfortunate that it's an inborn trait that these players have, but it's something that you have to factor in when you're drafting them.
All right, so how about the New York Jets? They have been so far a human waste dumpster fire, getting nuked by North Korea. I mean, they is there any dynasty value at all for any players on this team?
Yeah, I think they've been staring directly into an eclipse for a little too long down in New York there. But like you alluded to with Charles Clay earlier, and this is kind of where I was trying to segue into this agenda point. I think someone like ASJ could have some sneaky value there as like a late round flyer, as a depth tight end. Just somebody there has to catch some sort of footballs going forward, and their wide receiver core honestly doesn't scare me very much.
Yeah, I agree. This is somebody who we've talked about a little bit in this offseason. ASJ could definitely be the beneficiary of Quincy Enunwa going down, of Eric Decker, Brandon Marshall being out of town. Matt Forte might not be ready for week 1. Under the Chan Gailey offense, he didn't use tight ends, so now he might have the opportunity to actually see the field and catch some balls. This is a player that a lot of people wrote off because of his time in Tampa Bay, and for good reason. I mean, he was the reason that he was out in Tampa Bay. But
that was ASJ on ASJ. He and he's admitted that he's had to change his life because of his own off the field antics.
Yeah, so a lot of people just need to change the scenery. You and I and kind of everybody on the team, we like to make fun of the notion that getting traded or getting released is a good thing, because it's more often than not a good thing. But sometimes change of scenery is needed, and his ADP is not reflectant of the talent that he had when coming into the league. So he's definitely somebody to think about late round. Let's jump into some ADP twins, both coming in at 35.33, so right there at the end of the third round in Dynasty startups. Demaryius Thomas and Dalvin Cook. Who you got?
Geez, I mean, the way Cook's looked, and you know how I feel about Vikings players in fantasy. It's getting harder and harder for me to say that he's not going to be, he's not going to be a thing. He's not going to be a factor even in his first year. Usually in a startup draft, I'd be probably going wide receiver anyways to start the draft, depending on where I pick, obviously. So in the third round, Dalvin Cook may be the kind of guy I look at. Having said that, I love Demaryius Thomas. I could see him, being consistent, putting up numbers for you. He's basically proven to be quarterback proof. So, this is a really tough one for me, but I'd probably still lean Demaryius.
It's very, very tough for me, and I'm leaning Demaryius as well. Dalvin Cook, I have been very impressed with him specifically. What I haven't been impressed with is the offensive line, and we have to factor in that the Vikings backfield has been is going to be crowded. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, but is the superior. I think that McKinnon and Latavius Murray may get some touches just because they're there. I mean, you're not going to keep capable running backs off the field just to your new rookie second-round running back runner time. So, Mary been for 4 years. It's in league winning potential for the next few years. I don't think you can say that with Dalvin Cook. And the easy argument against this is that rookies tend to gain value almost no matter what. while veterans won't. Um, I'm not sure guys like Dalvin Cook and Joe Mixon are set to gain value in year one. I think they may be a better buy in week two. I don't have any evidence as far as rookie running backs losing value. I know all rookies tend to go up in their sophomore year, at least in ADP, but rookie running backs that get off to a slow start. I mean, we've seen it with Amir Oben, obviously, him being stuck behind Devonta Freeman. But then, hey, Amir Abdullah, he's a sexy buy right now, even though he's probably going cheaper than he was his rookie year. Tevin Coleman has come on as of late, at past year or so, despite the fact that Devonta Freeman's still getting hit. So Cook and even Joe Mixon being better buys their sophomore year.
I could see that. I don't know that there's much room for Mixon and Cook to go up right now. I mean,
right.
I guess in startups, anyways, they're still being selected fairly high. So I mean, unless we're talking about them taking a jump into that, Le'Veon, David Johnson, maybe not so much Zeke Elliott anymore tier, then there's not a lot of room for them to go up regardless.
All right, two players coming in at 93.17, Evan Ingram and Cam Newton. Who you got?
I'm gonna have to go Cam here. I mean, I don't see Ingram as a fit in New York. As far as the rest of the pass catching core they have there. I mean, Sterling Shepard is by all accounts going to be healthy before the season starts. Brandon Marshall, Odell, although there's video of him, looking at the sun today, I'm sure he's still going to be a beast.
Is this real? He looked at the sun?
Oh yeah. There's in my my home league group chat, someone posted the video. They said one of these football players is gonna do it, and it's gonna be all over social media. And then he posted a video of Odell looking at the sun
and he wasn't wearing glasses.
Oh no.
Oh god.
Yeah, but I think Cam at this point in a draft would be around when I'd start looking at, hey, he's fallen this far. This is an elite option at the position. I'm gonna go ahead and nab my quarterback right now. Whereas Ingram, I don't really like picking rookie tight ends to begin with. So picking one that I'm not so comfortable with to begin is a no-brainer for me to go Cam here.
Yeah, it's Cam Newton, and it's not close for me. We said the Demaryius Thomas and Dalvin Cook one was tough. This one's fairly easy for me. Evan Ingram's going far too high in fantasy drafts. And Cam Newton, I think, is going too low, at least relative to other quarterbacks. This is a guy that was like the QB1 this time last year in Dynasty, or QB2.
Yeah, well, he's coming off, his most dominant season so far. So,
yeah. So, I mean, I know he's a bit up and down season to season. I know that, people don't like seeing him sulk on the bench. And I know the statistics aren't there all the time, but he's still one of the best quarterbacks to have in Dynasty, in my opinion. And you're talking about two positions which are probably equally weighted in importance in most Dynasty leagues. So it's not as though it's quarterback and a young budding wide receiver. It's quarterback and tight end, and we're talking about one of the greats right now, at least from a fantasy standpoint. And you could argue from a real life standpoint, he did just come off winning the MVP the year before last. And you're talking about a complete unknown, one that was drafted towards the end of the first round. A lot of people, you and I, agree, probably did not go to a good situation for him. That's not close for me. All right, last one before we get Pat Kerrane from RotoViz Radio. Paul Richardson and Adam Shaheen both come in at 174.17. Who you got?
I know you're a big Team Shaheen believer guy there, but I'm going to have to go with Richardson here. I think he has a very good chance to be the number 2 option. Number 2 receiving option anyways. Jimmy Graham would be the number 2 passing game option, I guess, behind Doug Baldwin. But I think Richardson has a nice path to targets. I think he's finally starting to live up to his potential. I know he had an injury there, but it looks like it's not too serious. He'll be back pretty soon. And this late in the draft, I think you can get some good value out of picking a guy like Richardson here. Whereas, again, my hesitation to pick rookie tight ends leads me to maybe fade Shaheen a little bit.
I can't remember the kid's name. Maybe you can help me out. Did you happen to watch the Seahawks game versus the Vikings? I'm sure you did.
I saw some of it. I don't watch a lot of preseason, mostly because Blair Walsh was flipping off our bench. So I'm surprised he didn't point wide left when he was doing it.
Is that a real thing? He really
yeah. He kicked the field goal. Well, he didn't flip. He pointed towards the bench. But again, like I said, I'm surprised he didn't point wide left and miss the bench completely. So.
Oh wow. So I'm only a quote unquote dynasty expert. I should know these players' names, but there was a wide receiver on the Seahawks that had an amazing first couple drives. He looks like he could. I mean, go from I think he was a second-year undrafted player. Everybody's screaming at their radio right now. I know.
With the name, yeah. I'm trying to look it up as quick as I can here.
Yeah. And then you got Darbo, who came in. You got, obviously, Curse, who seems to have a spot no matter what. You got Jimmy Graham at the tight end position. Paul Richardson. And Paul Richardson hurt himself, didn't he, in the first preseason game?
In the first game, yeah. He didn't play this game, so it allowed Kaysen Williams to make some big plays.
Kaysen Williams. He was amazing. But I don't know if it's one of those what was the one guy's name? Chris Matthews in the Super Bowl that performed really well. It might just be like a one-game thing. I don't know, but he looked great. They just have so many mouths to feed there, and I don't know that Paul Richardson is anything special. So, and I like Shaheen. I like Shaheen's second-round pick. Not really as familiar with the position as some of the other tight ends, but I think he's a high upside pick. So I'm going to go
he certainly doesn't have a lot of competition. I mean, there's no reason for Chicago to not, throw him out there and see what they can get out of him. I know Zach Miller has been getting a little bit of hype right now, but I'm wondering how much that is. Maybe they're trying to drum up trade interest and get rid of another veteran where, they're not going anywhere this season anyways.
All right. I want everybody to know I am safe. I am parked right now. And in just a second, we are going to be joined by Pat Crane of RotoViz Radio.